Alright, this is part 2 of the shield tutorial. So I have my high poly shield here. Before I go any further, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up my material editor, rendering, material editor, slate material editor. I'm going to come over to the side. Look, I notice when I come in here, this circle that I had put in there kind of as a guide still exists, so I'm just going to delete him. Okay. Alright, so there's my reference that's on the reference plane. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring over a physical material. I'm going to select the shield, and I'm going to assign this material to it. And I'm going to take that shield, right click on it, say hide selection. Now I have all these other objects. So I'm just going to region select all them. I'm going to bring in another physical material and assign that material to them. Now, whichever object has the dotted lines is going to show up here in its parameters. I'm going to give these a different color. I'm going to make these green and say OK. So now I want to right click and unhide all. I can close the material editor. So because these have these different materials on them, I'll be able to create an ID mask so that I can have different details on my shield based on those different elements. Right? I'll be able to create an ID mask. So I'm going to region select, and this grabs all of my high poly shield here. And up under create selection sets, if I just click in there, I'm going to type in HP space shield and hit enter. So now if I click a negative space, anytime I click on this arrow, do HP shield, that grabs everything that makes up my high poly shield. So let's select the main shield body, and we're going to do edit, clone, but we're going to set it to copy, and we're going to rename it shield LP and say OK. And we're going to right click and say hide unselected. And up here under create selection sets, we're going to call this LP shield. Alright, so this is going to be our low poly shield. Now, let's go in here. I'm going to go to utilities. I'm going to find polygon counter. It's not listed, so I go into more, and I can find under utilities polygon counter. There we go. So this is a lot more polygons than you would need for any kind of game art object. We're going to really simplify this down. So first off, because it's still an edit spline with lathe, I can take this, I'm going to orbit around here a little bit. I can reduce the number of segments. I could take this down to like 32. That's too, I think it's still too faceted. I want to have more sides than that. 36. Still kind of, now let's leave that for now. All right, and let's come out here. Let's turn that off. So I want to simplify this down. I want to make this shape simpler. So part of what I'm going to do is here under edit vertices, I'm just going to grab all these vertices right here and crank up my weld to like 500 and click weld to weld them down. So you'll see those loops, those nice little circles are going away. That's just going to be in our texture. That's not going to show up in our high poly. There we go. We may want to keep some of this lip here. So let's just do a weld. So there we go. So this is everything that we're going to have for our low poly. If we come out and look at it, everything else is going to show up in our texture. So maybe this front even, we might even take that and just take some of that detail out a little bit. Let's grab these 2 points right here. We'll weld those two together. And I'm just going to, I can't move this because right now I'm on these guys. So on your keyboard, you'll see that there should be function keys at the top, F1. And moving over. If I go to F5 and click on that, that changes. You see as I change F5, F6, F7, and F8, it changes the colors on the gizmo. So if I go F1, or I'm sorry, F5, that allows me to just grab that and kind of move it over. If I hit F8 until both Y and X show up, I can grab that handle and kind of move it around. So let's grab this point here. We're going to make him a corner. And let's just kind of look and see. If I zoom out. All right, so this shield is currently 1,332 polygons. So that's still quite a lot. So we could come out here, and one thing we could do, so I'm looking here on the top, let's go down to vertex. I'm just going to come in here, and under vertex geometry refine, I'm going to click 2 times to add 2 points, then right click and say corner. There we go. Let's go through these points and right click. We're just going to make all these be corners. Oops. When we do this, we got to make sure that we're right clicking on an actual point. There we go. What does that make him? All right, so he's 1,000 polygons. So that's probably good. I think we could probably live with that. That's not too crazy. So for a nice shield that's got rounded, it's got the circle in the center. It's rounded out here. I think we'll be fine with that. You could certainly go lower. I think for the fidelity we're working at these days, I think that this is a good shape. So that's our shield low poly. Now, we're not quite done with them. I think at this point we should probably save. So definitely save what you have. And then I'm going to go ahead and just right click on the model and say convert to editable poly. The low poly shield needs to have UVs. So I'm going to put a UVW map on him and just adjust the alignment. After I adjust it, hit fit, because I want to make sure I can actually see where everything is. And there we go. So there's our, it's kind of facing down. I think it would be upside down. If I grab, go into the gizmo, I'm going to rotate, I'm going to turn on angle, and then there we go. So that kind of rotates it. So now this is the top. We're just going to right click and say convert to edit poly, make that permanent. And let's open up our unwrap UVW and go into open UV editor. All right, so this is our shield. Let's turn off show active viewport. I'm going to click on element and click on the shield and just say tools, relax. I'm going to hit start relax. All right, so he's really shrinking in, which makes me think, if I undo, I'm going to click a negative space and they select inverted polygons. Yeah, it's all inverted, so we're just going to click on the little mirror. That'll flip it. So now if I region select everything and hit start relax, not much happens. It just kind of relaxes those polygons, trying to get them to their original shape. That's good. Let's just region select here. Those are on the top. So perfect. There's our shield. I think one thing we might want to do is just grab everything, right click and go into scale, and scale it in so it doesn't go completely to the edge. I'm going to right click and say convert to edit poly. So there's my shield. What I'm going to do is put an extra edit poly on it. And now I'm going to do file, export selected. I'm going to, with only my shield selected, I'm going to file, export. And it's very important that at this point that I do export selected, because I only want to export out the shield low poly. So now I type in the name shield, underscore LP, and do save. I'm going to say, basically if I come in here, I can do Autodesk Media and Entertainment, just click on that, and those defaults are what I want. I'll say OK. And now I'm going to right click and say unhide all, and I have my shield low poly. I'm going to go ahead and hide him, and just to be on the safe side, I'm going to come up here to the top and do HP shield, and then right click in negative space and say hide unselected. All right, so there's everything for my high poly. Now notice, no UVs on this. High poly shield does not need UVs. Right? You want to have materials on the high poly, but no UV mapping. So I'm going to take all these pieces here. I'm going to do file, export selected, and this is going to be shield underscore HP for high poly. And now we save this and say OK. I'm going to take this into File, Save As. I'm going to hit the little plus sign to save as another version. That way I have more than one version of this. I save my progress as I go. I'm going to pause the tutorial and load up Substance Painter next. Alright, so here I am. I'm in Substance Painter. It's usually going to have some kind of default because they're always uploading it. So I don't want to update to any new versions. Thank you. Welcome to Substance Painter. I'm going to go ahead and hit close for that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and import the pieces that I need. So I'm going to do File, New, and then I'm going to click Select, and then I'm going to navigate to where the elements are that I need. Benjamin shield, Roman shields, and what I want to select is my shield low poly. I want my resolution at 2048. I'm going to click OK. That'll take a second for the shield itself to load up. There it is. F. Now I see I got little facets kind of going in here. So what that makes me think is I need to go back into 3ds Max and I need to resave it after I go through and do an auto smooth, right? So let's go ahead and I'm going to pause. Alright, so here I am. I'm back in 3ds Max. I'm going to come up here to create selection sets and click on it, the little arrow, and select LP Shield. When I click LP Shield, I get this error message. It's basically saying it's frozen. So I'm going to say yes, because I do still want to select my object, and then right click and say hide unselected. If I come over here to modify, go into element, click on it, scroll down and say auto smooth, that's going to smooth it out. That's going to fix my faceting that I was running into. So turn this off. And I think actually if I region select this, I think what I really want, clear all, I just want to set it to 1. Yeah, I just want everything at 1 smoothing group. Turn that off. And let's save this out. File, export selected. If I click on this arrow, it's going to show me previous folders I was in. There's my Shield LP, and I can replace it. Okay. Now I come back to Substance, and in Substance, I'm going to do File, New, Select, and I'm going to reselect that shield and say Open. Go with all these defaults. It says project's been modified. Yeah, I'm going to discard it. Alright, there we go. So now I don't see those facets. This is good. If I hit F, that'll frame it. Right. So next, what we need to do is we're going to bake out our texture. So your layout may be slightly different from mine. You want to find texture set settings, and underneath that is an option for mesh maps, bake mesh maps. You click on that. Inside there under high definition meshes, there's a little page. You click on him, that's where you select your high poly. I'm going to click open, and then I'm going to click on ID over here on the side and change ID bake parameters to material color, and go back to common, and I'm just going to click bake. Alright, so it's starting to bake out textures. You see that there's this weirdness happening in the center. Right, it's having a hard time baking that out. And I think what that is probably, yeah, we're getting a lot of dark spots. So I think we're running into some issues here. Let's close this. So what we've done is based on the surface of our object, we've generated image-based textures. If you hold shift and click, if you hold shift and hold, shift and the right mouse button will rotate the light, basically rotate the sky, and so you can see how the light plays across the surface. So yeah, we're getting weirdness here, and so what we need to do is when you're baking, sometimes I'm going to bake mesh maps, and I'm going to increase the max frontal distance to 0.1 and just hit bake. And that's going to go ahead and bake it out. And I think that's going to fix my issues. Yeah, see, I'm not under the... That looks better because what was happening was we weren't rendering far enough out to get all the details that we had on our object. So this is good. Alright, we're just about done here with this. What's that? Alright, there we go. So now if we scroll down this list, I'm going to click here on this arrow and just drag that down. If I scroll down this list, you could see all these different elements we have. If we go to Bake Mesh Maps, go to ID, they should be rendering out an ID map. So something's weird there, because it should be based off of material colors. So that's maybe that's a recent change in the software. So I'm just going back up here to layers then. So here's my object. It's got the mesh maps baked in. I'm just going to come up here. I'm going to select a material. If I go to basic materials, there's things like pure brass. I can just drag that over to layer 1, and that'll be applied. Or if you hold shift and right click, you can orbit, so you can see how shiny things get when you do that. I could trash that under layers. I could put a different one in, like iron hammered. I could put that on it. Definitely don't want that. Now, those are basic materials. You can also go into smart materials, and you'll find more interesting options in there. Like some of these I've downloaded, some of them are ones that come with the software. Like if I drag brass old over, this is going to look a lot more interesting. Now if I hit the little folder, you'll see there's a lot happening in here. So I'm just going to kind of hit, oops, well, I just rearrange that. So I'm just going to come over to layers. Basically what you're seeing here is you're seeing a lot of different elements happening. There's like the base material that if I click on that, go to properties, you'll see that's a brass, right? And then there's different elements layered on top of it based on masks. So we're not going to go into detail on what all those other elements are. Just know that they're there. You'll get a chance in the future in other classes and on your own to go through and work with those other map types. So definitely save what you have, right? Go up here, documents, 2021, scenes, Benjamin, Shield. We're just going to call this Shield 04 because it's based off of my 4th reference. There we go. Site exists, and now I can do File, Export Textures, and I'm going to go to that same location there. And say select folder, and now you can choose how you want to render your textures out. Most of the work that I personally do is in Unreal 4, and so I render out my textures in that. So I'm just going to go with that. I'll click export. So it's going through, it's rendering out textures. I'll click OK. I'll open that up again real quick. You'll see that there's a number of different options inside here. Like you can render out for Unity. You could just render out your basic maps. There's even an option for Amazon Lumberyard. So save this. What you'll do, you're going to end up turning in a screenshot. It's just of your shield here inside a substance. If I go to the folder where my shield is sitting at, there's the textures that it generates. So if I double click on one of these, that'll open up an image viewer. And you can see there's the texture. Where the UV isn't, it just repeats those pixels going out. This is just the color information. If I hit my arrow keys, you'll see the normal. So this is image-based lighting information, right? Based on the direction, the different color the light will appear as if it's coming from that location. And then this is what we call a packed map. The red channel, the green channel, the blue channel, each one has different information. And the red is your ambient occlusion, and the green is your roughness, and then in the blue is your metallic, right? And not always, we don't always use those like that. So let's see, so I'm just going to rename these real quick. I really just need the name Shield 04. I'm going to do underscore BC. I always abbreviate them. So let's copy the name then. Shield 04, N for normal. And then this one, since it's ambient occlusion, roughness, and metallic, I just call it AORM. So now you're all set. You could import your low poly along with your textures into Unreal, and it'll look fantastic inside there. you could apply your base color as a bitmap into a physical material. It's really not worth it to go ahead and start bringing these into 3ds Max. You really want to see them on target, whether it's in Unreal, Unity, or any other game engine. So that's it for this tutorial.